My name is Emily Carter, and at 37 years old, I stood in the middle of my father's charity gala, while my stepmother pointed at me and said 5 words that changed everything. Security, remove her immediately. The ballroom went silent. Not the kind of silence people notice right away, the kind that spreads. One conversation stops, then another, until 200 people in tuxedos and evening gowns are pretending not to stare while staring anyway. I remember the crystal chandeliers, the violin music still playing, the smell of expensive wine, and the look on my father's face. That was the part I couldn't forget, because he wasn't shocked, he wasn't angry, he wasn't even embarrassed. He looked tired. As if this was simply another problem he'd hoped would disappear if nobody acknowledged it, including me. One of the security guards stepped toward me. He couldn't have been older than 25. His expression practically apologized before he opened his mouth. "Ma'am, it's okay," I said. The entire room seemed surprised. Maybe they expected screaming. Maybe they expected tears. Maybe they expected a dramatic confrontation. Instead, I picked up my purse, adjusted my coat, and started walking. Behind me, I heard my stepmother's voice immediately become warm again. "Anyway, where were we?" Laughter followed. Not much, just enough to tell me people were relieved the entertainment was over. I reached the ballroom doors. Then I heard my father. "Emily," for one stupid second, I thought he was finally going to stop me. I turned. He looked directly at me. His eyes were pleading, not for me, for himself. "Don't make a scene." Those were the last words he said before I walked out. I didn't know it then, but by midnight that same night, both my father and my stepmother would be standing outside my apartment, begging me to answer the door. And by then, 68 missed calls would already be lighting up my phone, because the building they were celebrating inside, the one they claimed belonged to our family, the one my stepmother had spent years turning into her personal kingdom, it wasn't theirs. Not legally, not financially, not in any way that mattered. And hidden inside a forgotten safety deposit box was the document that proved it. I just didn't know it yet. Welcome back. If you've ever had someone try to erase your place in your own family story, stay with me. Because what happened next changed everything. 3 hours before the gala, I almost didn't go. The invitation sat on my kitchen counter for nearly 2 weeks. Heavy cream cardstock, gold lettering, embossed seal. Everything about it screamed money. Everything about it screamed my stepmother Victoria. Officially, the event was celebrating 25 years of the Carter Foundation. Unofficially, it was celebrating Victoria. Every local magazine article made sure of that. Every interview, every press release, every speech. According to Victoria, she'd transformed the foundation, built it, saved it, modernized it. The only problem? My mother had created it. My mother had started the foundation when I was 10 years old, back when she was still alive, back before cancer took her. Back before Victoria entered our lives. Somehow, over the years, that detail disappeared. Not all at once, piece by piece, until people began talking about Victoria like she was the founder, like history had simply been edited, and everyone agreed to pretend the original version never existed. I should have ignored the invitation. I knew that, but at the bottom was a handwritten note. Emily.it would mean a lot if you came. Love, Dad. The first personal message he'd sent me in almost 3 years. I wish I could tell you that was enough, that I believed him. The truth? I went because I missed my mother, and the gala was being held inside the Harborview estate, the place she'd loved more than anywhere else in the world, the place she spent 15 years building, the place she once promised would always belong to me too. I just didn't understand what she'd meant, not yet. The Harborview estate looked exactly the same from the outside. That somehow made it worse. The long stone driveway curved around the fountain my mother had personally designed. The white columns glowed under carefully placed lights. Music drifted through the open entrance. From a distance, it looked untouched, preserved. But the moment I stepped inside, I knew something had changed. The lobby walls used to display photographs of the foundation's earliest projects, schools, shelters, scholarship recipients, families. Now those photographs were gone. In their place hung giant framed portraits of donors, corporate sponsors, board members. Victoria appeared in nearly all of them. My mother's face appeared in none. I stopped walking. For a second, I thought maybe I had missed something. Maybe they had moved the original founder's display. Maybe there was another section, another room. There wasn't. A familiar voice interrupted my thoughts. "Miss Emily?" I turned. Walter. He'd worked at Harborview longer than I could remember. His hair was completely gray now. His posture wasn't quite as straight as it used to be, but his smile was exactly the same. Seeing him felt like finding a surviving piece of childhood. "Walter," his eyes softened. "Your mother would be happy to see you here." The words hit harder than expected. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he glanced around, lowered his voice. "Things aren't what they seem around here." That got my attention. What do you mean? Walter hesitated as though deciding something. Then he simply said, look in the old library before you leave tonight. What am I looking for? His eyes shifted toward the ballroom, something someone worked very hard to hide. Then he walked away, leaving me standing there with 100 questions. I thought about following him. Instead, I headed toward the gala. Looking back now, I wish I had gone to the library immediately. Everything would have happened differently, but life rarely gives warnings that obvious, and even when it does, we don't always understand them. The ballroom was already crowded. Investors, politicians, board members, business leaders, everyone smiling, everyone networking, everyone pretending they cared about charity while discussing tax advantages. Victoria stood near the center of the room. Naturally, she had mastered the art of becoming the center of every photograph, every conversation, every event. The moment she saw me, her smile flickered, just slightly, enough, then it returned, brighter than before, more artificial, more dangerous. She approached with practiced elegance. Emily, Victoria, a brief pause. Neither of us hugged, neither of us pretended. How nice of you to come. The sentence sounded welcoming, the tone did not. My father appeared beside her, older than I remembered. Thinner too. His hair had become almost entirely silver. For 1 second, I saw the man who used to carry me on his shoulders, the man who taught me how to ride a bicycle, the man who used to cry at Disney movies. Then the moment disappeared, because he looked nervous. Not happy, not excited. Nervous. As though my presence complicated something. Emily, he smiled weakly. I'm glad you're here. I wanted to believe him. Part of me always wanted to believe him. That was my biggest weakness where my father was concerned. No matter how many times he disappointed me, some part of me kept waiting for him to become who he used to be. Victoria touched his arm, a subtle gesture, but I noticed. My mother always noticed things like that, the small movements, the quiet power plays, the ways people communicate without words. Dad immediately stepped back, almost unconsciously, and suddenly I understood something. Victoria wasn't controlling the room, she was controlling him. The realization unsettled me more than I expected, because control like that doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually, one compromise at a time, one surrender at a time, one silence at a time. The same way history gets rewritten, the same way families lose themselves, the same way good people stop standing up for what they know is right. I didn't know it then. But that realization would become important later, very important, because before the night ended, I would discover just how many silences my father had agreed to, and what those silences had cost. The speeches began shortly afterward. Victoria spoke first. Of course she did. She stood beneath a spotlight while 200 guests applauded, confident, polished, prepared, the perfect public figure. She talked about legacy, vision, growth, leadership. Then she said something that made my stomach tighten. When Richard and I built this foundation. Built, not inherited, not continued. Built. My mother spent 15 years building it. Victoria had spent 12 years rebranding it. Yet somehow the language kept changing, the story kept changing, the facts kept changing, until the lie sounded more familiar than the truth. Nobody corrected her, not the board, not the guests, not my father, especially not my father. That should have been the moment I left. Instead, I stayed, because I wanted to hear what came next, and that was my mistake, because 10 minutes later, Victoria noticed something. Something she clearly never expected me to see, and the moment she realized I had noticed it, everything changed. I didn't notice it immediately. At first, it was just a small detail, a name, one name on a presentation slide, but once I saw it, I couldn't stop staring. Behind Victoria, a giant screen displayed the foundation's leadership timeline, year after year, milestone after milestone, photographs, achievements, expansion projects, scholarship programs, donor growth, everything carefully designed to tell a story. One specific story, Victoria's story. Then I noticed the founder section. My breath caught.